Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I want to update you on a matter of significant importance to the sovereignty and security of the Republic of the Sudan. Recently, the Sudan submitted a formal request to the UN Security Council to discuss the United Arab Emirates' aggression against our nation through its continuous multifaceted support for its local proxy, the genocidal militia of the RSF. This request was articulated in 2 detailed letters to the Council, highlighting the urgency and gravity of the situation. Our submission to the Security Council was clear and specific. We sought a dedicated meeting to address the acts of aggression perpetrated by UAE against the Republic of the Sudan. The purpose of this request was to ensure that Security Council is fully apprised of violations and to seek appropriate measures to address and rectify the situation. Despite our clear and unequivocal request, the Presidency of the Security Council, due to the pressures exerted on them, decided to convene a meeting in a manner that does not align with our expectations or the seriousness of our complaint, let alone the disastrous situation in our country. The topic and format of the meeting, as decided by the Presidency, were not in accordance with our specific request. Instead, the meeting has been structured as a generalized manner, which we believe dilutes the focus and urgency of our concerns. This is not an attack against the President of the Security Council at all. In fact, we commend his laborious efforts to reach a consensus with a view to convening this meeting. And we also commend and applaud the practical consensus that he managed to realize. Sudan remains steadfast in its commitment to pursuing a dedicated meeting focused solely on our complaint against the UAE. We are determined to engage with the Security Council in a manner that adheres to Article 3 of the Council's Rules of Provisional Procedure. This article stipulates the right of member states to have their specific complaints addressed appropriately and without dilution or procrastination. Finally, we will continue to engage diplomatically and utilize all available channels of multilateral diplomacy to ensure that our voice is being heard and our concerns are addressed. The Sudan is committed to upholding international law and norms, and we expect the same from international community. Our objective remains clear: to secure a meeting that specifically addresses the aggression against the Sudan in a focused and comprehensive manner. In conclusion, Sudan calls upon the international community and the members of the Security Council to recognize the importance of addressing specific complaints with the seriousness they deserve. We urge the Council to reconsider its approach and to convene a meeting that fully aligns with our request and the provisions of international law. Thank you for your attention.
Ambassador?
Yes?
Could I just ask you a couple of questions? The United Nations has been saying repeatedly they need cross-border and cross-line access to civilians, particularly in Darfur, parts of Darfur. What is the government of Sudan doing to make access safe and accessible?
Okay.
And if you have any update for us on the situation of the SAF in El Fasher.
Okay, this is a good question, and I'm going to reply to it in details. The Sudanese Humanitarian Aid Commission is working closely with all international organizations and humanitarian aid with regard to securing flights clearance for the delivery of humanitarian supplies, for giving or granting access to all area that has been affected, and issuing of visas and travel permit to accompany trucks of aid to affected areas, established presence of Sudanese authorities in Port Sudan, including the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, has facilitated direct channels of communication with the humanitarian actors. There are no constraints whatsoever or so-called bureaucratic impediments to the aid. This is a bogus narrative which has been perpetuated repeatedly by specific circles who wanted to frustrate the activities of the Sudan in this respect. Higher levels official representatives are available on the ground in Port Sudan, and effective delivery of aid is affected either or by maybe bureaucratic emergency due to the existing impact of the war, or the immense manpower reduction to cut the public expenses. There is a financial gap, of course, affecting the civil service sectors. So visa processing subject to two-tiered regime of regulation regarding OCHA, because they are representative of United Nations and with their well-known and renowned partners, they will be issued every visas, every demand or domestic, licenses to move to affected areas with the urgency that it required. And regarding the international NGOs, they have a different kind of regulation, which does not necessarily should be the same as the one we accord to OCHA. So, as I said, and if you want to give you the numbers, I can state the following. Since January 24 up to May 13th, there are about 16,111 procedures and treatment of requests as follows. There is 10,624 movements notices have been issued, 1,500 visas have been issued, 1,034 materials transfer procedures have been authorized, 715 addresses for banking procedures have been made, 252 customs exemptions have been also made, and Sudanese authorities have offered or exempted the aid from tax to an amount tantamount to over $350 million. In addition, there is over 30 technical agreements have been made. There is finally there is around 2,064 accreditations for the certificates of employees of the organizations have been made. So what else can we do then? Then, if you regard the humanitarian access, we have authorized together with the participation of the coordinator, humanitarian coordinator or residence coordinator in Sudan, and with Mr. Griffiths, internal humanitarian aid routes. There are around 6 of them. They will all lead to Al-Fashir and Darfur. And there is cross-border paths from Chad, from South Sudan, from Egypt, and there are seaports from Port Sudan, in addition to aerial. We have dedicated around, say, 4 airports: Port Sudan Airport, Al-Fashir Airport, Kadugli Airport, and Al Ubaid Airport. Those ports are dedicated exclusively for the immediate and unhindered delivery of aid to the affected areas. It is the RSF that deliberately managed to obstruct the delivery of the aid with a kind of aim, a vicious aim, to develop the food gap into full-blown famine. And this is a recipe for them to say, for example, to involve some circles in the international community to call for humanitarian intervention in Sudan. And this will exacerbate the famine in Sudan because they attack the productive areas and they displace the people and they obstruct the United Nations and aid organizations from having an unhindered access to the affected areas.
And if I could just ask you one other question. In the most recent panel of experts report, there were allegations that the UAE is bringing in arms through Chad to the RSF. Could I just have your reaction to that?
Yes. UAE, as we have just discussed in the Security Council, must be censured and condemned and should willingly come to terms with the UN Charter and abstain forthwith from destabilizing peace and order. They are arming the militia of RSF, and they are also engaging mercenaries with sophisticated weapons to overthrow the government in Sudan. And its blatant and infamous aggression is very well known. It has been documented with investigative journalists in America, in Britain, and across EU. And also it has been, it has been also mentioned in the panel of experts report in December 2023. So we say here in this respect, creeping immunity or impunity in this respect is not unacceptable, but dangerous. The UAE behaves like a rogue state. It must be punished for invading Sudan through local and foreign actors and proxies. The weight of evidence show. And the RSF do not have any legitimate demand to be accommodated. It is not a political entity. They use the armada supplied by the AU, by the UAE to kill civilians, to destroy infrastructure, to rape women and girls, to displace people from their abodes and homes and local, local homes, driven by vicious motivation for using military power to usurp political power. Their project failed. They must be accountable to all atrocities against the Sudanese people and their women and girls and children and vulnerables. And the people persuaded have been perpetuated, all these crimes have been perpetuated in cold blood, in a savage manner, and they must be accountable to this. Suppressing aggression, trends of rogue elements is a legal and political imperative. So we think that there must be accountability regarding the UAE interventionism, evil interventionism in Sudan, and with it using its local accomplices. And there must be reparation and restitution for Sudan. Failure of the Security Council to take action in respect of this primary responsibility, and that the Charter will usher in, according to our estimation, and encourage chaotic world order and deconsecration of peace and security, a well-established principle of the post-World War legal order. So we have noticed that since Sudan have been listed into the Security Council agenda from 2003, up until today, or to date, Security Council have convened 500 meetings. And from the outbreak of the war, which is in 15 April, up until now, Security Council convened in private and public meetings over 34 times. But there is no action has been taken. So we are asking the Security Council to stop talking the talk and to start walking the walk. Any more questions?
Where are the mercenaries from, Ambassador?
Pardon?
Where are the mercenaries from?
The mercenaries are recruited from within Chad and from specific countries in the Sahel and from southern Libya. They include local tribes, and we have narrated this. If you go back to our complaint, we have mentioned everything, and we mentioned the state as well. So there is a kind of trying to expand the activity of the RSF to rely heavily upon the ethnic factor, which overlap with specific local tribes across the borders to the Sahel, and trying to recruit them in this bloody agenda in order to destroy Sudan, and to use this UAE Armada as a device to, as they wanted, to rebuild a Sudan that suits their conditions, to be ruled by their surrogates, and this is the challenge. Any more questions? No, thank you very much for your cooperation.